Hello everyone, Aeon here, and today I'm going to be doing a national overview of Xibalba in Sloop's Comfy Balance mod. So to get some things out of the way first, this will not be comparison of vanilla Xibalba to Sloop's Xibalba, but I will point out some things as we go along where there may be the most obvious changes or the most impactful changes. I would also, or if you would like to see, say, a national overview of Amasia Bulba, I think a really good video is Babel Builder's Amasia Bulba National Overview. There's also Chazzy Burger's very brief but also still good Amasia Bulba overview. Um, Another thing is I'm not a super accomplished player or anything. I have just kind of started recently a few months ago. I'm in some games. Some of them I'm winning. Some of them I'm not doing so well in. Most of them are vanilla, but I've played and started a few games using sloops, and I think it's a really cool mod. It just kind of brings up a lot of the weaker factions to higher strength and makes them more viable to play. And I think one of those is Amnesia Bulba. So I just like using it, and it doesn't really change a whole bunch. It just kind of changes some stats around, adds a few new spells. Um, and yeah, I think it's a really cool mod, so I enjoy playing with it. So that's why I'm playing another game with it, and that's what this national overview is for. So looking at Xibalba itself, we are a race of amphibious cave dwellers, basically the Mook. They're like Atlanteans that have been kind of changed around by maybe the magic of Relay or Xibalba, and now they are frog or toad-like. Then there are a few Zots that are still around, though none of them are really the armored variety, though of course Zots were never very armored in the first place. The Mook all have Amphibious, Swamp Survival, and Dark Vision 100, with some of their Mook, like your Chalk Mook, having Poison Resist and Poisonous Skin. Um, and they range from size 3 to your size 4 Womook to your size 6 Bakab. Um, your Zots are limited in recruitment. You can only recruit 15 of them per turn, but you can recruit them all from forests, caves, and your capital. You can recruit the Lance variety, and you can recruit the Club Sword variety. Looking at your sites, you have the Circuit Center, which is where you get your Chakmook units, produces 1 water. You get your Flooded City, where you get your Bakab and Womook, produces 2 water gem, 1 earth gem. And then you have the Cave of Perpetual Darkness, which is where you get your Kamazot, which produces 1 death gem. So overall, you get 3 water gems, 1 earth gem, and 1 death gem. Coming up to your magic, we can see that this is uh, basically following the path of what your magic is. You have high water with your max being 4 water, high earth with your max being 3, decent death with your max being 2. Um, yeah. Your nature, you have 2 on your way, though it can get up to 3, but that's only a 10% chance. Your Bakab and your Mukahul each have a 100% random, which can be nature. Then you have some blood and air. You get your blood from your Kamazots and your way. Your Kamazots can go up to blood 2 as well as your way, though that is also that 10% random. Your Kamazots is also where you're going to be getting that little bit of air from. Next, looking at your priest level, it's average, with your highest priest being your Bakaba at priest 2, though from some of your heroes you will get priest 3s. You have a sloth limit of 1 and a heat limit, or sloth limit plus 1, heat limit plus 1. You do prefer heat skill of plus 1, so you can go up to heat 3 or down to cold 1. Cold 1 is potentially viable on this nation as your Zots, which are cold-blooded, flying, stealthy, blind patrol or bad at patrolling. That's your Zot stats. Even though they are cold-blooded, you don't have a lot of them. While both your Wei and your Kamazots are extremely good mages, your units themselves won't be affected as much by the cold because most of them are your Mook, which have no problems in the cold. So there is some viability to going cold 1. With a sloth limit of 1, you can only get to production 1, and in normal Xibalba, that doesn't really matter at all because you don't have high production costs other than your Wamuk. In Sloop's version, your production costs or your resource costs go up a little bit, and so that maybe means that you don't want to go full sloth. You may only want to go 1 sloth or 0 production, but typically the fact that you only get up to 1 production isn't going to be that bad unless your entire strategy relies on, say, your Chakmook or your Womuk. Finally, we have primitive forts. So this isn't as bad as, say, primitive forts in EA. As an MA, your primitive forts are still um, able to give you +1 commander points. So you're still able to recruit 2 commander point commanders every turn or 4 commander point commanders every 2 turns. And due to the fact that you get less administration, you won't get as much gold resources or rec points. But in caves, you make up for that a little bit as all your forts get 10% increased gold resources and rec points. So coming down to our units, the first one is the Mook Militia. These guys are effectively useless. They're really cheap. They do a decent amount of damage, have higher stats than a human, but they have pretty poor morale, pretty poor stats, and even while they are cheap, if we come to our next unit here, the Dart Thrower. The Dart Thrower is effectively your normal Mook type of unit, but for only 3 gold more, 1 more resource, and 6 more rec points, you are getting a better unit. But the Dart Thrower also probably isn't the most useful unit. You don't have, say, things like flaming weapons or enough nature without Sabbaths to do poison weapons. These guys don't have enough range or accuracy to really be using their darts with those buffs anyway. So their usefulness is a bit dodgy, and you probably won't be building these ones either. Next we come to the Mook Warrior, who is actually cheaper than your dart throwers, though a much better line infantry compared to them if you're not using them for their darts. These guys are also very cheap, so you'll basically, if you can recruit militia, you'll almost always be able to recruit your Mook Warrior. And these guys are just better. They have better stats all around, and they gain a high shield while your Mook Militia only have the leather hauberk or hauberk. Um, so these guys are decent. They're cheap little, just like you can use them for a bit of siege strength. They have a decent amount because they have 2 extra strength. They're very cheap. They do a decent amount of damage. So they're just nice little light infantry that are cheap to get and easy to produce. You have a club sword variety, which your Mook aren't going to really be your most killy units. You'll use your summons or your mages for that. So this variety potentially isn't the most useful as they do drop that spear for which can do repel checks for a higher damage club sword, um, which isn't all the most useful because if you're going to use these guys to hold the line, you don't really want them to drop down to a very repellable weapon. Next, you get your bronze variety of Mook Warrior. These guys are fully kitted out, and this is where the sloops changes, some of the sloops changes come in. They actually get a cap, a hat in this version of the game. In vanilla, they don't get a cap, but here they do. The resource cost is increased because of that, but they are now at 16 head protection, 13 body protection, which puts them very nicely in the medium infantry category for middle age, while also still having a pretty cheap cost of 10 gold, 12 resources, and 9 recruitment points. The resources are starting to get somewhat high, but really not much. They still do an okay amount of damage, but again, they have that bronze spear with length 3, so you don't get repelled very easily, and with that high protection, they'll be a lot better at holding the line. Again, you have your club sword variety, but similar to the leather version, these guys aren't really going to be killing very much, so you may not want to get the club sword variety. And even if you're going to be giving them a layer of buffs, a lot of the buffs you can give them are like Stone Skin or Gift of Formlessness, or you can even give them things like Piercing Weapons, to get Giant Strength, um, or sorry, Weapons of Sharpness and Giant Strength, which would still probably be better on your piercing weapon guys, as the compounding piercing, not as good as in Dom 5, but it's still pretty good. And with getting up to, say, strength 16, getting up to 19 piercing weapon damage, that's pretty good. Next, we'll get into your sacreds. The sacreds are the Chakmuk Dart Thrower, the Chakmuk Obsidian Warrior, and the Womuk. Of these, the Chakmuk Dart Throwers, similar problems with the other dart throwers, you just have too little range to really go against enemy ranged units, and if you want them to be going against, you know, melee units, they don't really have enough range to really be firing at them a lot. They have 5 ammunition, but with range 12, you're not really going to use up all that ammunition like a javelin. Um, so they're not the most useful in terms of what you would want. You could maybe build a bless around them, but it's probably not the best. They do in sloops get a spear instead of a dagger, but they do only have that medium infantry. So you're basically paying for a sacred version of this guy, um, which can be good or bad. They do get the poison skin and poison resistance, um, but it's arguable that this guy, your Chakmuk Obsidian Warrior, is better with his heavy armor, giving him equivalent of heavy infantry armor whilst having almost demi-giant stats and a very strong weapon that does a paralyzing poison, high damage. Um, so that poisonous skin, which is also a fatigue poison, I forgot to mention that. So this will compound to make people or enemy units really fatigued against them. Um, these guys are pretty good. You can use them. You can build a bless around them. They're in all of these units here are another example of where sloops gave them caps, so that they now have head protection and that overall makes their protection better. And last we have the Womuk, who are demi-giant uh, Mook. They have almost giant stats this time, um, while having almost, or not even almost, they have heavy cavalry protection levels. Very strong weapon, very good skills. They are very expensive though. So if we're looking at between the Obsidian Warriors and the Womuk, you get the Obsidian Warriors, they have the poison weapon, they have the poisonous skin, and they have heavy infantry levels of protection with less hit points and strength, but they're cheaper overall. Womuk, more expensive, better stats. They don't have the poison weapon though, or the poison skin, but they are much higher protection. However, they are size 4, for as demi-giants are, while these guys are size 3, which could be bad, good or bad. You won't be getting a lot of sacreds, so having less to fill up squares means that you can get a bigger line of them much quicker, but they will have a less attack density compared to, say, your Obsidian Warriors, who are size 3 and get 3 attacks per square, but you won't be getting a lot of them very quickly. So it can be really up to you. In my game, I don't really have a specific bless for them. I kind of have a general bless that makes kind of all my sacreds more viable, makes my commanders more viable. But I think especially in sloops, these two units are equally as viable with differing strengths that make them kind of subjective as to what is good and what is bad. So next we have the Zot's Warriors, which I talked about earlier. The um, Zot Warrior with Lance, Zot Warrior with Club Sword. Probably just want to go with the Zot Warrior with Lance, as Zots are really fragile. They have no armor, very low hit points. You're not going to be in sustained combat for long enough to really use the fact that you have a higher damaging weapon with the Club Sword. So just getting that Alpha Strike with the Stone Lance and the charge bonus, and then they'll just die. Is probably a better usage of the money you'll spend on them, though they are extremely cheap. Next, we have a Mook Jungle Warrior. These guys can be recruited in all forests, but only in forests. You don't get them in, say, your capital like you do with the Zots. These guys are Mook, but they do have Stealth 40 and Forest Survival. They are not a spear variety, but they do have that club sword. They are essentially your Mook warriors, but also with stealth and forest survival. And these guys can be good. You can do a little bit of elfing with them, same with your Zots. But these guys are, a more sturdy type of unit compared to your Zots. So maybe you can combine them as well, though that would severely slow down your Zots who have 20 map move, while your Jungle Warriors only have 12. Underwater and underwater forts only, you get the Lakamha Warrior and the other Lakamha Warrior. One has a net and no shield, and one has a shield. The net can be good for making it so that their poor damage can actually be, doing something. They have, only 11 attack, 14 damage, but with the net, you can reduce people's defense down to 0 and then start actually poking them and killing them. The shield variety, similar to other shielded units, they have 13 prot, 12, 13 head prot, 12 body prot. They are kind of a middle ground between your bronze and your leather, um, and for that they are also cheaper. They they're decent. Both of these aren't like this most useful, but the fact that you have underwater recruits can be good because you can recruit things on land and then recruit your mook underwater to really just kind of like compound your advantage that you have against other nations comparatively to ones that can't go underwater. Though in sloops, it is noted that all nations can build underwater forts, but um, that doesn't mean all nations have underwater units they can recruit. Coming to your commanders, we have the Mook Aja, who gains a high shield in sloops. These are your basic leadership commanders. They have 100 leadership, so 3 squads plus 1 morale. No magic, no undead leadership. They are a priest level 1, and they are effectively a Womuk with the stats of an actual giant at this point. Um, they are pretty good. The entire Atlantis line of nations, including all its offshoots such as Xibalba, have a 100 leadership kind of Atlantis unit. So this is something that has carried on. And these guys can, with their priest level 1 and their high stats, you could maybe think about doing some light thugging with them if you wanted to. They can also lead parties of your sacreds and potentially take lighter province defense provinces or maybe lighter indie provinces since they can bless them. They are relatively cheap, but they are decently expensive in both gold and resources. They only one recruitment point, so you can make 2 of them at the same time. All around, I think these guys are good. You will probably have most of these leading your armies. Next, you have the Ayats. This is one of your researchers you can recruit. They're 90 gold, which means they have equal gold to research ability that when you first buy them. And sorry, their morale is 72 gold, so they are also very, or not very, but they are research efficient to their gold cost over time. However, they aren't, say, as good as another unit that we'll go over, as I think their overall upkeep cost and paths aren't as useful. Water 1 can be decent for just some light water buffs, but you can't really buff other units with this. Their Death 1 as well isn't the most useful. Both of these, if they're 2, would be a lot more useful, but as level 1 paths, they are not great, as there aren't many spells you can use to either buff yourself, buff allies, or really do damage. Next, we have the Aha, which is the unit that I think is better than the Ayats. These can also be recruited in underwater forts as well, while the Ayats cannot. The Aha is more expensive initially, but its upkeep is about 20 less gold. which over time will mean that these guys will be less expensive. They're also priest ones, so you can add them to armies to help bless your units. And they are water ones, earth ones, and earth is a lot better of a path. Sure, while it's still only one, earth is more useful on land, which is where most of the fighting will happen, compared to water, where you can boost water with a water gem and getting up to water power and stuff. But earth, you can do the same thing with an earth gem, get up to earth 3 with earth summon earth power, um, and you can do that anywhere. While with the water power, you can only do that underwater. So earth is a lot more useful, as these guys can easily get up to earth 3 with a gem, and then from there they can start casting things like the group skin spells, temper armors, or steel warriors. Um, so I think these guys are a lot more useful. They're also more research efficient, so you'll probably be pumping out these guys more often so they can join armies if you need them to. The Ayats is a good thing that you can have in a pinch if you need to, because they're still very cheap researchers. But I think overall these guys are better researchers and better support mages. Next you have the Mukkohul, who is a battle mage. Has some interesting leadership values. Can need some dead, some need some magic. Is an okay leader, 50 leadership, 2 squads, 0 morale, but you can have him join up with, say, your Ajas um, cast, and then he has 2 water, 1 earth, 1 death, and 1 priest level, while also having the previously shown 100% for water, earth, death, or nature, which means you can get up to water 3, earth 2, death 1, or a nature 1. With water 3, you can start doing higher water spells, such as the liquid body, gift of formless spell. You can do quickness. You can do some self buffs. It's useful, but water is more useful underwater than it typically is above water, though these guys with water 3 and some gems could do things like rain, quagmire, and since all you guys are swamp survival, quagmire isn't going to do anything to you. With an earth 2, you can do summon earth power, and similar to Aha, you can start doing earth buffs. Death 2, you can start doing Skelly spam, um, as well as maybe some cross pathing with water and maybe some boosters. You can get some Stygian Rain going. And since you have things like your Obsidian Warrior and your Womuk, you'll have some magic weapons to negate the fact that everyone has invulnerability now. And the nature ones are not the most useful, but you could maybe use them as light thugs with moss body, liquid body, uh, personal iron skin, things like that. Some items, they'd be able to take out some light PD. They also have Gift of Water Breathing, which isn't the most useful for your nation, as all your units are amphibious other than your Zots. But if you find some indies that are useful, such as Sinos, or maybe even just cavemen as like big meat shields that sometimes hit and do big damage, you can bring them underwater with you in your water fights. Next, you have the Chakmuk Assassin, who is sacred, is a Chakmuk, and has Assassin 1. These guys are pretty good. They are pretty heavily armored, heavy infantry levels of armor, do high damage, have a range attack. With Assassin 1, they're not going to be able to really avoid bodyguards a lot, but with their high armor, high stats, high damage, they'll probably be able to take out a lot of bodyguards that people tend to put on their commanders. Especially since they can like fatigue out a whole bunch of different commanders and units before they can even like actually really do damage against them. They are decently expensive, similar in price to your Mook Aja. Um, Also, only 1 recruitment point, which I'm pretty sure in vanilla they are 2 recruitment points. Correct me if I'm wrong. But these guys are still good, as in vanilla. Compared to vanilla, you won't need to use them as much, as one of the ways that you can expand in vanilla is with assassin expansion, but due to the fact that your units are better in sloops, that may not be as needed, though of course it's always an option. And of course, if ever you need an assassin, it's good that you have access to one, especially one that is typically chassis-wise a better assassin, though he cannot scale walls. Your Camazot is one of your kind of like standout mages. They are Death 2, Blood 1, and they have a random in Air, Earth, Blood. They are a Zot, so they're very fragile, cold-blooded, but they are very fast and flying, and they have stealth. These guys are also a Blood Searcher, so if you get a Blood random, you'll get the Blood 3 equivalent of Blood Searching, which means that they'll be very efficient Blood Searchers. But you can also bring them along in battles to Sabbath up with, say, other Camazots or Ways to cast big death spells in battle, or big blood spells. With your Ways, you can cast big nature spells, but we'll get to that later. With air, you can start doing big air buffs, which you normally can't do, so, misform buffs. You can do really, it's just going to be the misform buffs. If you need some lightning resist, you can do that. You could do the range buffs like the missile range and the precision, but you don't really have missile units to use it on. It could turn your dart throwers from not great to okay, but that's not the most useful. With earth, you'll be able to get potentially higher earth spells if you need them, though you already have decently high earth, so really it's just the fact that you can turn this one air into up to like reasonably like 4 air if you wanted to, and that can be quite good. So yeah, these are great. They can also just kind of fly around in little parties, do some skelly spam if you want to take out some light PD, Sabbath up to do some more powerful spells to take out even bigger PD. Really, these guys are very flexible, pretty cheap, and they may compete in your capital for what mage you're going to get, as it can be between your Camazot or your Bakab, which is your big premier Atlantean kind of king mage. Extremely expensive, though less so in sloops. Better stats in sloops as well. These are basically the older brother version of your Moot Cahul. They have basically all the same things, just better, more water, more earth, same death, so they can only get to death 2, potentially death 3, but very unlikely. Same nature, random, better priest level, more water breathing, and they also give a resource bonus, which is another reason why, even though you only get up to production 1 at most, it's not really much of a problem. Not only are units not very resource intensive, with these guys, you can get high resources in your cap, even with 2 sloth. Anyway, coming to the water, you can get up to water 4, even 5 if you're very lucky, water 3 or even 4, and death 2 or even 3, and then nature 1. With water 4, and even just like a water cloak, you can start casting high water spells in battle, or summons, or globals. The earth 3 with earth boots, and a bloodstone, which is relatively easy to obtain for you, maybe with some empowering, or maybe with your god. You can get up to Earth 5, and Earth 5 is where you can start summoning or doing globals as well. Earth 2 can start doing Twiceborn, and with Twiceborn, I'll put it on screen, you get this chassis, which basically is the Bakab, all same stats, but higher health, higher strength, higher base prot, gets all the same thing as most white mages, but is still amphibious. Loses your water breathing and resource bonus, but is a very strong just chassis, and can be turned into a thug or just kind of a light super combatant. If you gave him a death gem or a skull staff, you can start doing soul vortex, and that can really boost its survivability, plus all the water and earth buffs you can give it. So your death twos can be very useful um, as keeping this guy around. You can also just kill them off if you want to, because they are 230 gold a year, and white maging them will take away all that upkeep. So you can use the twice born to get a white mage just for the upkeep reduction, or you can start using them as thugs and super combatants. And these guys are just really good globals if you boost up their paths. Strong in battle as they can cast very strong spells, buffing spells, or just battlefield-wide spells. Yeah, all around they are very good leaders, but they are slow to recruit. So really, you could make strategies around using Bakab. You can make strategies around using Camazotz. I think it's very flexible on what you want to do. You can just have your Camazotz and just make your Mukahul instead, which also can be recruited underwater. Camazotz can be recruited in all caves, so they don't compete as much in your capital. But since you can recruit them first turn, or not, well, yeah, you could, but probably not the best idea. But you can recruit them starting turn one. Uh, then you can potentially transition into recruiting Bakabs, though their upfront expense and overall expense are pretty high, so that just may never be a strategy that you want to employ. Personally, I really like the Bakab. I just like this type of unit, the very powerful mage on a strong chassis. In a game I'm playing with them, I did do the Twiceborn and turn them into basically heavy thugs like super combatants, and that's been going pretty well. So I really like, I really just like doing that in general, finding ways to just make strong mages into strong combatants, but it's always up to the player on how they want to play. Next we have the Mook Scout and the Mook Batab. These are both recruited in all forests. This is the only scout unit you get, the only official scout unit you get. Though of course all your Zots are stealthy, so you can use them as scouts if you wanted to. And the Zots Batab is stealthy as well and pretty cheap, so you can use that as well as pretty fast. Your Mook Batab can lead your jungle warriors and stealth parties to do some elfing if you wanted to. Pretty cheap. The Zotsbatab can be recruited in all forests and caves, and your cap as well. The jungle warriors cannot, the jungle mook. So you can recruit these in all your caves, which means since you can recruit these and these in all your caves, you can start making Zotsbatab and Zots warriors and just make small little parties with them, and they could help with your expansion, help with raiding. Really, it's useful. These are all extremely cheap. You may have some gold left over, they just put into making some of these, and you can use these as scouts. You can use these to do some light elfing with your Zots. I think these are very useful. While they may not be able to cause a lot of damage, it can make it so that your enemy just has to kind of be wary all the time. Um, they have to go back, maybe bring some army, split off their army, or send another army to take care of these guys. So, or dump PD. Either way, you're getting value out of them by just having them pop up where people don't expect them, and you can get value out of them in expansion if need be. Lastly, we have the Way, which is a very good mage. They are recruited in all forest caves. They can also be recruited in your capital. Um, These guys are very good because they have Bloodborne Nature 2. So what that means is that you can put them into Sabbaths, and plus their Shape Changer Jaguar form, which I'll put up on screen, they can turn into extremely efficient Communion or Sabbath slaves. As if you have a Way and you put regeneration, or you do personal regeneration with a Way Sabbath Master, then all your Sabbath slaves Way will become regenning, and with two shapes that can be extremely powerful, as Jaguar form, as you saw, had almost 20 health, which means that they'll be regenning a pretty good amount. You can also use maybe other mages to do another spell you have that is a mage Xibalba specific, which is Gift of the First Soul. Not a caster spell, but or self-cast spell, but it can be cast on other units and could potentially make some of your ways have up to 20 regeneration, which is pretty good. Um, they'll also be able to just cast nature spells on all units. You can do group regeneration, and on your high health Mook already, especially your Woe Mook, that will be extremely powerful. They can do Howl. They can do um, They can do just different summoning spells. They could do Bark Skin, but since you have access to Earth, that isn't the most useful. Though if you produce these guys, then you could get Bark Skin earlier, and with your water spells also have fire resistance. And then once you get higher into alteration, you can start putting earth on your units. So these guys, I think, and then of course they are Blood Searchers 2 equivalent. Um, so pretty decent Blood Searchers. I think these guys are really good as Communion Slaves, with a couple as Communion Masters to really get that regeneration going. They're pretty cheap, and you can get them basically anywhere effectively, as you'll start in a cave, and forests are very common. So these guys are great. I think overall, your basic units and basic commanders are a lot, well, especially your units are a lot better. Just getting that hat makes them a league above the vanilla version. Your commanders don't really change much at all, just some light stat changes. Um, so you play them basically the same as MH Xibalba, but just kind of with the knowledge that all your units will perform better than they would in vanilla. Um, Next, we can look at the summons. So we have the Balams and the Chalks. The Balams all have a Zot form, an Onaqui form, and this Jaguar form. Um, the Balam of the North is 2 air, 4 nature, 2 blood. Of East is 2 water instead of 2 air. South is 2 fire instead of 2 instead of the other ones. And West is 2 death. The Chalks are Priest 3s. The Balams are also Priest 3. The Chalks don't have any shape changer, though they all have this lightning attack. Um, and yeah, they all have the Thunder Axe. Each of them is also different. This one is a 4 water, 4 air, 3 water. This one's 4 air, 2 water, 2 nature. This one's 2 fire, 4 air, 2 water. And this one's 4 air, 2 water, 2 death. All of them are very powerful mages. The Chalk cast Rain when they enter a battle. So all of these are very strong conjuration summons you can get. The Blam require 4 nature, Chalk require 4 air. Um, Neither of which you get natively, but if you took a Pretender God, it wouldn't be very expensive to go up to 4 nature and 4 air um, to get if you wanted to summon these. You also get the Monster Toad in Conjuration, which is it's fine. It's very high hit points, high strength, similar stats or similar traits to your Mook and especially your Chalk Mook. It has that Poison Cloud, um, which combined with your Chalk Mook can be good as they have that poison resistance. So maybe if you wanted to use a Chalk Mook build with these monster toads, that could be something. They also have Trample, but unlike your Mook, they are cold-blooded. So if you want to just do a full Mook army and you took cold, just because it doesn't really hinder you that much, it would hinder these monster toads, and they have undisciplined. Though they do have 14 morale and are sacred, so the fact that they trample won't be as much of a detriment because there's a high chance they could just die before they actually start trampling your own units. You get Jaguar Toad, which is an earlier summon, uh, very similar to the Monster Toad, without the Poison Cloud, smaller, less health. Has a spit attack, similar to your Dart Throwers. Not the most useful, but something. Sacred as well, Cold Blooded, very similar. Jade Serpent. These are similar to like the Serpent's Tis. They have the standard effect, so you can kind of stick these in different um, squads and just improve their morale. Again, Sacred, high hit points, decent protection, decent skills. These guys can just be useful with their high hit points and maybe whatever buffs and blesses you put on them. They won't die as often, so that standard effect can really start um, being useful. Next, we will go over the heroes. So coming to the heroes, we have Chilam Grandmother Earth, Arrogant Demon, Red Face, and Surviving Onagui. So starting at Chilam, he is a Zot with Fire 1, Earth 1, 2 Death, 3 Blood, and 3 Priest level. But he is only 3 Priest level with his item, as the item gives Priest level 1, or Priest plus 1. It also gives Research plus 12, Healing 3, Fortune Teller 15, and the Summoning Allies ability he has actually also comes from the item, which gives 1 Ozelotl per month. So this guy is a very strong battle mage. Um, Not just like on face value, though with 3 blood, he can already start doing some good stuff. And with 2 death, he can skelly spam. But he can be really good in a Sabbath, as he doesn't take that many Sabbath slaves to get to high levels in his blood or death. His item is also very good, as it's not stuck on him. You can put it on anything else, which can boost the priest level, research level of a whole bunch of different things. You can add it to, say, one of your ahas, and just make them a great researcher and make them start healing um, any units that have afflictions within that province. And Fortune Teller 15 allows you to, say, have misfortune, but still not really be affected by it. You could also, I mean, there is a trade-off because you can't be researching while using summon allies. So if you wanted to get 1 Ozelotl per month, you would have to be giving up the research plus 12, which may not be the best idea. But overall, he's a strong battle mage with a really good item. Next is Grandmother Earth, who is a Basalt Queen with some magic paths and a higher priest level. The magic paths are 2 water, 2 earth, and 2 death, and she has 4 priest level. Her base stats are very good, plus her paths can make her into a heavy thug or super combatant, but given the fact that she's one of a kind and extremely valuable, you probably don't want to be sending her off on her own. And since she has 200 leadership, 100 undead leadership, 40 magic leadership, you could easily have her lead enormous armies of units and be a strong army thug or army super combatant. She also has Inspiring Researcher 1, so you can leave her inside of a fort somewhere, and instead of having her be leading armies around, or maybe in the downtimes of a war or between wars, she can be helping your researchers um, and really boosting your research economy. Next is the Arrogant Demon, who isn't as useful as the previous two, nor as useful as the next two, due to him lagging magic paths and just kind of being a big uh, chassis with high health strength um, and siege bonus, which is one of the useful parts of him is just his high siege bonus. He does also have the grab and swallow attack, which when you use against any unit basically insta kills them. So if you get him to grab and swallow a thug or super combatant, he can be extremely valuable. But on a baseline, due to his lacking magic pass, he's not going to be as useful as a lot of your other heroes, or even just say Macabre. Next we have Red Face, who is an extremely good assassin, the best assassin in sloops, with Assassin 10, Stealth 65. It's 2 water, 2 earth, 1 death, 2 priest level. With all of those, he can do a lot of self buffs, bless himself. Um, he has base stats that are great, base protection that's high, high hit points, high strength. He's just all around a really good assassin. And bar, say, like a really heavy thug or a really heavy super combatant, he alone, without giving him any items, can beat enemy commanders. Especially with the Assassin 10, bodyguards are basically never going to show up. And lastly is the Surviving Nunnequi. This guy is a Fire 1, Earth 2, Death 1, 4 Blood, Priest 1. He's very similar to the Xibalba, but instead of Death 2, he has Earth 2, and he gets 1 more Blood level instead of having 1 more Priest level. This can be extremely useful because with some blood boosters, he can start summoning really high blood summons, and constructing high blood items. He can also join Sabbaths to cast high blood or earth spells in battle. He's also a really good blood searcher with obviously 4 blood and 2 blood searcher. But he can also be used as an assassin in a pinch, assassin 5, stealth 70, and he summons 2d6 beast bats in battle, which can be extremely useful when you're just assassinating someone because you bring your own little army. And with assassin 5, there's a good chance they won't be bringing any bodyguards. So he is extremely flexible, similar to like Grandmother Earth, though maybe even more flexible. Um, with his leadership values, he can lead armies. You can kit him out to make into a heavy thug. You can just have him be a battle mage. You can send him out to assassinate. Probably don't want him to be researching, but he can be at home summoning or constructing. So all around, this guy is just really good to get. Um, and all of your heroes, I would say, are really good to get, other than maybe the Arrogant Demon. But I would say you wouldn't really be sad with any of them, even the Arrogant Demon, because he has some useful aspects of really improving siege and being able to insta-kill things. So overall, I think the heroes for Xibalba and Sloops are extremely good. Um, and I think it would be a good reason to take Fortune for this nation because all of these can really help you out. They don't really break into new paths, but they break you higher into those paths. Um, and all of them have different ways that you can use them no matter what part of the game you're in. So now let's go over some spells. Some of these spells that we can look at are the conjuration spells, which I already touched on. Some of these are the jaguar toes, the monster toes, the chalk, the balam, and the serpent. So the basic jaguar toad spell you can get at Conj 1, 3 effects, 2 nature gems. Um, the Jade Serpent spell is at Conj 4. You get 2 of them for 3 water gems. Then you get a Conj 4 version of the Jaguar Toads one, nature gems 4, and you get 10 effects with more effects if you have a higher nature mage. The monster toad is only 1 monster toad for 1 gem. The Balam is at Conj 7 for 16 nature gems, and you get 1 of the 4 Balam. And the chalk is also 60 air gems, much harder to get compared to your nature gems as you don't have good air searchers, and that's at Conch 8. So through all of these, some of the good value ones are the Jaguar Toads basic one. You get more effects per gem. The Jade Serpents is less effects per gem. The Jaguar Toad Conch 4 version is pretty nice, as you get 10 plus of them for only 4 nature gems. Monster Toad is equivalent in terms of gems and the amount of effects you get. Obviously, the Balam and the Chalk are big casters, so they're a bit different. They're also commanders, so the cost is, paying for all their paths, their chassis, and whatnot. Especially for the Balam, who have three uh, chassis, which is actually really good, as Dom 6 changed it so that if um, if you have items on a commander and they change form, they keep their items. They don't get the effects, but they keep their items even if they change their form, so that when, like, say, the battle ends, you can change back into another form. So with this, you could start out as your Zots form with all five or all of your item slots, then die. Then it turns into your Ono key form with all item slots still, and then it dies again and becomes your Balam form, um, or your Jaguar form. And throughout all of that, you could have spells going off and be attacking and whatnot. So these guys can actually be pretty strong super combatants. The Chalk uh, doesn't have the same thing, but because it can cast like rain when they start a battle, um, it can be very nice to start doing air spells if you have that access. They also have the soul spells. So we have Break the Third Soul, which causes fatigue damage to an enemy. Um, but it has to be from an air mage, so not exactly the easiest, and it's at Thom 2. And if you have like an air um, Kamazot, you probably don't want to be having it just be doing Break the Third Soul. Break the Second Soul causes a limp to a person. This one's a lot easier to do as you have a ton of Earth mages, especially Earth 1 mages. So causing a permanent limp is actually pretty nice. Uh, so you can have like your Ahas do it or other similar uh, commanders. Break the Fourth Soul, also a Thom 2, is a death spell. So this is something that maybe your odds could be doing. They do a curse, and that can be pretty good as, of course, cursing can allow for higher chances of afflictions and whatnot. So if you ever are encountering a situation where you need your ayats to be doing something, they can be doing Break the Fourth Soul. And now at Thom 3, we get the Gifts version. So the Gift of the Third Soul grants reinvigoration to one person. This is, again, maybe not the best usage of your Kamazots, as you probably just want them to be casting higher air spells through Sabbaths. The Gift of the Second Soul does grant blunt resistance, but this can be, say, paired up with your Ahas to maybe give them a little bit extra resistances, but your Ahas also have Water 1, which allows them to cast Liquid Body. So it's not really the most useful. Your Kamazots could use it, but again, you probably don't want to be casting level 1 Earth spells with your Kamazots. Gift of the Fourth Soul gives you luck. This is a way to get luck on your nation. You have a decent amount of death access that aren't just like your big death or your communion or your Sabbath death, such as your Kahuls. So you could have those cast luck, and that could be a way to access luck without glamour. Though again, you may want to use them for something else, but these are always just options you can use. Though they may not be, you may not want to go up to Thom because of the fact that your casters may start casting these, and they aren't always the most useful. Coming over to the Break the First Soul in Blood 2, this causes an enemy to get diseased, and it's with the blood path. Pretty good. Doesn't require a blood slave. Disease is always nice to do against enemies, and it is a area effect. Unfortunately, it is not target enemies only, so it will hit your own troops. And it is a magic resistor negates, so it won't always work. But with the amount of blood or the easily accessible blood mages that you have, you could have them be using this, especially when they don't have slaves left. Gift of the First Soul was that spell I talked about earlier, where it grants regeneration to one person. Since it isn't an area effect caster, it won't be given to the uh, slaves, but it can still be potentially used by, say, out of Sabbath blood mages to cast onto in Sabbath blood mages to grant regeneration, or maybe you just have out of Sabbath ways to grant use um, group regeneration or something similar. But it's just something you could have. You could have blood slaves again doing this and say putting it on like your Bacabs so that they get regeneration, which can be pretty good as obviously they have pretty high health. Get into just some kind of combat spells, general combat spells. We have Rain, Quagmire, as I previously mentioned. Rain, of course, makes it so that fire spells are harder to cast, and if you have like cold clouds or fire clouds, they are dissipated. It will make your Zots have more fatigue, but since they're probably just gonna die on the first strike anyway, it doesn't really matter. Quagmire, since all your units have swamp survival, you will not be getting, except for your Zots, you will not be getting any maladies from swamp from Quagmire, so you won't getting that -1 attack defense +2 encumbrance or -20% combat speed. Well, most everyone else will be, so that's really good. It also means that your units in general, if say you're fighting Satis, because they all have some survival, you won't be getting all of those negatives of fighting against Satis because you too have swamp survival. Legions of Steel is very nice, especially with the Sloops version of this nation, as you have both a helmet and a chest piece, so you'll be getting +3 on both of those instead of just getting it on the chest piece. So that's really nice. And then, as I previously mentioned, there's Stygian Reigns. If you boost up some paths, which can grant the 15% invulnerability to just everyone on the battlefield. And it will also cast Natural Rain. So that can be a way to, instead of having to cast Rain and the Stygian Reigns, you can just cast Stygian Reigns. Um, and with your Womook and your Chakmook Obsidian Warriors with magic weapons, they won't be affected by this at all, and it can give you just that extra little boost of resistances. Though, of course, you always have the ability to use the skin spells from Earth Paths, like, and you also can easily cast Marble Warriors and similar. Some globals that you can do, or just some rituals. Of course, our Earthblood Deepwell, which is from Beneath, Forge of the Ancients. All of these are great, getting more income, more Earth Gems to cast the other ones if you wanted to. Forge of the Ancients, you already have easy ability to cast or make Dwarven Hammers, so this just compounds that, makes it so that all your items are cheap. And something I'll touch on later are that basically almost all items in sloops are cheaper. So this will just make them even cheaper. A little note is that the hidden in spells, hidden in sand has been changed over to fire in sloops instead of earth. So now you only have access to hidden in snow and hidden beneath or hidden underneath. So you won't be able to get the hidden in sand reanimator priests if that was potentially a strategy you have used before. Some items to look at are the Death Staff, of course, just getting higher death, the Cloak of Water, or the Water Robe, more water, that can be pretty good to cast potentially some water globals, though there aren't really a lot of them, and they tend to be very high and not always the best. But you could do that if you want, and then you have the water battlefield spells, especially underwater, can be very good, like Friendly Currents and the Sloop Spell Triton's Grace. You have the Lifelong Protection, which is always great, just makes it so that your mages are harder to kill. You can put it on assassins to make them even harder to kill. You have Earth Boots to, once again, similar to the Water Robe or the Death Staff, just boost up your already existing paths along with the Bloodstone, just make it so that you can cast globals, cast strong battlefield spells, all that. Blood Searcher, Dowsing Rod, just boost up some of your Blood Searchers so that maybe if they're not at that threshold of 3 blood searching, they can get to that threshold. So here's some 3 of the, like, I think biggest changes for maybe Xibalba is that all of these items here are moved down in construction. So instead of being at construction 7 for the water bracelet, it's now construction 5. Instead of being at construction 5 for the Skullmentor and Homunculus, they're now at construction 3. What this means is it becomes a lot easier and a lot more, maybe not specifically important, but a lot more viable to go straight into conjure or construction, so that you can get skull mentors to boost all your other research as well as homunculus, since you do have your ways, which are nature 2, and you can have them site search and stuff, and then get homunculus. So you can get homunculus and skull mentors, which is really good. And as I previously said, everything is overall cheaper. So these are some nice loose comfy balance mod changes that exist within the mod. Alright, so that was my national overview of Xibalba in Sloop's Comfy Balance mod. Sorry if this wasn't as, say, in-depth as you may have wanted. This is my first video on this type of thing, and I'm also, as I said previously, still pretty new to at least Dominion's multiplayer, and so I don't really have the best insight into all these different things and all the strategies that can be employed, but I have, I feel like a pretty decent idea, and I hope I could provide maybe something that was different from previous videos or some insights that you yourself have had. I just hope that I could have helped out and informed people. I hope to be able to make more videos on this type of topic in the future. My next video will be for the pretender design of this nation and some pretender ideas I have. If you enjoyed the video, be nice if you could subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Help me with the algorithm. Yeah. So thank you all for watching.